The sky bled crimson as the demon lord's shadow loomed over the ruins of the last human stronghold. Si Chen gripped his shattered blade, feeling the cold kiss of death approaching his tired heart. With a final roar of defiance, he activated the forbidden temporal seal engraved upon his soul. Suddenly, the stench of blood and smoke was replaced by the sterile scent of floor wax and young adrenaline. He looked down at his hands, finding them free of scars and calluses from a decade of war. The date on the digital holographic display confirmed his impossible reality. He was back 10 years in the past. A loud voice boomed through the speakers, calling for student number 404 to report for the rank evaluation. Si Chen stood up, his mind racing through the memories of this day, the day his mediocre life originally began. A group of elite students sneered at him as he passed, mocking the supposed trash of the F class. He ignored their petty insults, his eyes fixed on the massive testing chamber at the end of the hall. Inside the chamber stood the Demon Heart, a massive obsidian crystal used to measure latent magical power. Professor Han sighed as he checked the clipboard, barely looking up at the unassuming student. The professor instructed Si Chen to place his hand on the surface and channel his inner mana. Si Chen closed his eyes, intending to show just enough power to pass as a low-rank hunter. However, the gluttony system within his soul suddenly roared to life like a starved beast. An invisible vacuum began to pull the energy from the room directly into Si Chen's palm. The demon heart began to vibrate violently, emitting a high-pitched screech that echoed through the building. Professor Han shouted for Si Chen to let go, but the boy's hand was magnetically sealed to the stone. Waves of raw, unrefined mana surged through Si Chen's veins, threatening to tear his young body apart. In his mind, a system notification appeared, announcing the successful consumption of ancient demon essence. With a deafening boom, the demon heart shattered into 1,000,000 useless shards of glass. Dust settled over the platform, leaving a heavy, stunned silence hanging in the air. The professor stared at the empty pedestal, his mouth agape at the destruction of a multi-million-dollar artifact. Si Chen exhaled a cloud of hot steam, his body smoking from the sheer intensity of the power shift. He checked his internal status, seeing his level jump from level 1 to level 15 in a single heartbeat. Outside the room, a crowd of curious students gathered, whispering about the explosion they had felt. The Academy's security droids rolled into the room, their weapons armed and sensors scanning for threats. Si Chen raised his hands, putting on the facade of a terrified student who had no idea what happened. Professor Han rushed down the stairs, grabbing Si Chen by the shoulders to inspect him for injuries. He couldn't find a single scratch on the boy, despite the force that had leveled the equipment. Si Chen realized he had to leave quickly before the high-ranking administrators arrived to interrogate him. He claimed he felt dizzy and begged to go to the infirmary, playing the role of the victim perfectly. The overwhelmed professor waved him away, too focused on the wreckage to think clearly. As Si Chen walked away, a small smirk touched his lips, hidden by the shadows of the corridor. This time, he wouldn't be the weakling who watched his sister die while he hid in fear. He remembered his sister's smile, a memory that had been his only light in the dark future. He began to plan his next moves, knowing that the bullies of the Academy would be his first test. Far above the Academy, a dark presence sensed the sudden disappearance of the demon heart's energy. The gluttony system whispered in his ear, demanding more power, more souls, more essence. Si Chen reached his dorm door, sensing the hostile auras of the thugs waiting for him inside. He knew they were there to shake him down for his monthly allowance, just as they always did. But today, the prey had returned as the ultimate predator. The lead bully Gong Ting turned around with a sneer that quickly froze on his face. Si Chen stepped into the room, the air temperature dropping as his murderous intent flooded the small space. Somewhere deep in the Academy, a hidden alarm began to sound, a signal that a forbidden power had awakened. The high-pitched ringing of the Academy alarm system echoed through the sterile hallways of the medical wing. Si Chen sat upright on the infirmary bed, his mind racing as he processed the weight of his 10-year regression. A translucent blue holographic interface flickered into existence before his eyes, pulsing with a rhythmic light. The system text confirmed that the integration of the gluttony power was now 100% complete. Looking out the window at the peaceful campus, he realized he only had 3 years to prepare for the Demon Lord's arrival. He remembered his first life clearly, where he was nothing but a talentless failure who was constantly humiliated. Suddenly, the door creaked open, and a familiar face entered the room carrying a tray of food. Ma Long checked Si Chen's bandages, his eyes filled with genuine worry for his roommate's recovery. seeing his friend alive and well brought a faint, melancholy smile to the regressor's lips. Ma Long reminded him that the rank evaluation was looming and that they couldn't afford to be expelled. After being discharged, Sai Chen walked through the bustling academy streets, soaking in the vibrant life of the past. A sudden impact sent Ma Long's glasses flying into the pavement, where they shattered into tiny pieces. Gong Chong stepped forward with a cruel sneer, flanked by two larger lackeys who laughed at the spectacle. The bully demanded to know why his servants hadn't brought him the drinks he had ordered earlier. Ma Long scrambled to pick up the broken frames, stuttering out a frantic apology to avoid further violence. A firm hand gripped Ma Long's shoulder, stopping him from bowing any lower to the oppressors. Sai Chen stood tall, staring directly into Gong Chong's eyes with a gaze that felt like sharpened steel. The bully's face reddened with rage as he realized the academy loser was finally talking back. Gong Chong lunged forward, his fist glowing with a faint, low-rank energy as he aimed for Sai Chen's jaw. With a movement so fluid it was almost invisible, Si Chen raised his palm to catch the blow effortlessly. The surrounding students gasped as they witnessed the weakest student overpowering a D-rank awakener. Si Chen activated the Lightning Assassin class card, feeling the surge of high-voltage energy through his veins. He delivered a lightning-fast counterpunch that sent Gong Chong spiraling backward through the air. The bully crashed into a nearby stone pillar, the impact cracking the masonry and leaving him gasping for air. The two lackeys dropped their weapons and fled into the crowd, leaving their leader alone and defeated. A sharp voice cut through the chaos as Ling Yu, the student council vice president, arrived on the scene. She warned Sai Chen that further violence would result in disciplinary action from the council. Si Chen deactivated his power, the lightning fading as he turned to walk away without a word. Ma Long followed him, his mouth hanging open in complete disbelief at the transformation of his friend. Back at the dorm, their other roommates laughed off the story, refusing to believe the weakest could fight back. One roommate flexed his meager muscles, claiming he was still the strongest in their low-rank room. Sai Chen ignored the noise and began a grueling set of physical exercises to push his body's limits. Later that night, he ran through the rain-slicked streets with a 100-kilogram pack on his back. Every step was fueled by the memory of his sister's tragic death during the initial demonic invasion. A sudden phone call broke his concentration, and he heard the sweet, gentle voice of his sister, Xia Yun. She talked about her upcoming competition, unaware of the cosmic war her brother was already fighting. Si Chen vowed silently that this time he would be strong enough to stand between her and the abyss. After the call, he collapsed into bed and felt his consciousness being pulled into a dark, swirling void. He awoke in a strange dimension, standing before a massive black tower that pierced the blood-red clouds. A group of skeletal death hounds emerged from the shadows, their eyes glowing with a malevolent green light. Si Chen summoned his lightning blades ready to devour the first of many monsters in this new realm. He tore through the hounds like a whirlwind, each kill feeding the insatiable hunger of the gluttony system. From the top of the tower, a massive demonic figure watched the slaughter with a twisted, curious grin. The Rakshasa whispered a name that shouldn't have been known in this era, his voice echoing in Si Chen's soul. Below, the ground began to tremble as the tower gates groaned open, revealing a darkness that seemed to breathe. Si Chen felt a presence so powerful it threatened to crush his very existence before he could even move. A single ethereal key materialized in front of him, glowing with a golden light that defied the surrounding gloom. He reached out to grab it, knowing that his path forward was now tied to the secrets hidden within the tower. Just as his fingers brushed the metal, the entire dimension shattered like glass, throwing him back into reality. He woke up in the dorm room, but noticed a black demonic mark slowly appearing on the palm of his right hand. Si Chen stares at the black demonic mark pulsing on his palm as the dormitory room fades into a swirling vortex of shadows. He suddenly feels his feet touch solid ground in a realm where the sky is a bruised purple, and gravity feels unnaturally heavy. Before him stands the Purgatory Void Tower, a massive structure of bone and black iron that pierces through the dark clouds. Low growls echo through the wasteland as several E-ranked death hounds emerge from the shadows, their eyes glowing with hunger. Si Chen instinctively summons his Lightning Assassin class, feeling the familiar crackle of blue energy dancing across his fingertips. With a burst of speed that leaves a trail of ozone, he lunges at the nearest beast and delivers a precise, electrified strike. The monsters vanish into motes of dark energy, and a holographic window informs him that he has successfully leveled up. The ground trembles as a much larger entity descends from the tower's entrance, wielding two ethereal S-rank blades. This is the Purgatory Rakshasa, an S-rank guardian whose presence alone makes the air feel like liquid lead. Despite the staggering rank difference, Sai Chen refuses to back down and manifests his lightning blade to meet the challenge. The Rakshasa moves like a blur, toying with him and delivering shallow cuts that test his resolve without ending his life. During the brutal exchange, Si Chen notices a slight 0.4-second delay in the demon's wrist movement before every swing. He waits for the precise moment the Rakshasa overextends, then ducks under the massive blade to aim a strike at its chest. The Rakshasa stops its blade inches from his throat and lets out a deep, resonant laugh that shakes the very tower. The demon reveals it has been waiting for a human with the hunger to inherit the true power of gluttony. It explains that the tower contains the souls of countless monsters, and Sai Chen must devour them all to become the ultimate hunter. The Rakshasa kneels, offering its own essence and a golden void key to the regressor as a sign of fealty. Si Chen reaches out, and as his fingers touch the key, a massive influx of power surges through his veins, raising his level instantly. He hears the system announce that he has unlocked the gluttony ability, allowing him to steal the classes of anything he kills. The demon dissipates into a whirlwind of embers, leaving Si Chen alone with the two S-rank blades he has now inherited. He suddenly wakes up in his dorm room, his chest heaving as he checks his hands for the blades that were just there. A quick glance at his floating status window confirms that the level jump from 2 to 10 was not a dream. His roommate Ma Long pokes his head in, reminding him that today is the day of the crucial ranking assessment. The self-proclaimed dorm king struts past them, bragging about how his mid-tier E rank will surely dominate the day. Si Chen ignores the noise and begins his walk to the academy, his mind already calculating the fastest way to reach S rank. At the testing center, he encounters the student council president's enforcer, Jian, who tries to intimidate him with a cold glare. Si Chen simply smiles back, realizing that to his newly awakened senses, this supposed elite smells like a weak amateur. The professor calls the first group of students to the assessment portals, signaling the start of the ceremony. Si Chen steps into the portal, feeling the familiar tug of spatial transport as he enters the demon heart chamber. Inside a massive fleshy organ suspended by wires pulses with dark energy, the demon heart designed to measure power. He stands before the heart and decides to first test his base stats without using any of his inherited classes. The heart begins to throb violently, and the external display immediately jumps to a high D rank, shocking the observers outside. Sai Chen smirks and switches to his weakest monster class, the Gravehound, causing the heart to pulse even faster. The rank display flickers to C rank, and the professors begin to murmur in disbelief as they check for a system error. Finally, he unleashes the Purgatory Rakshasa class, and the demon heart lets out a shriek of pure terror. Outside, a localized thunderstorm forms over the academy as the rank display glitches from S to SSS in seconds. The demon heart suddenly bursts, spraying dark ichor across the room as the system completely overloads and shuts down. Si Chen casually devours the remains of the demon heart, gaining a new passive skill to see everyone's true potential. As he walks out of the portal, the entire student body and faculty are staring at him in a silence so thick it's suffocating. Suddenly, the ground beneath the academy begins to crack, and a deep, demonic voice from the Void Tower echoes only in Si Chen's mind. The demonic echoes of the Rakshasa finally faded into the back of Si Chen's mind as he stood in the quiet hallway. He knew that raw power alone wouldn't be enough to survive the coming descent of the Demon Lord. Si Chen pushed open the heavy wooden door to his shared dormitory room with a sudden, firm movement. Inside, his roommate Lin Xiao jumped nearly a foot into the air, dropping a bag of mana chips. "You scared the life out of me, Sai Chen," the boy stammered while clutching his chest. Si Chen ignored the apology and walked straight to the center of the room with an intense gaze. "Pack your gear because we are forming a team for the upcoming graduation exam," he commanded. Lin Xiao stared at him as if he had grown a second head, blinking rapidly behind his thick glasses. "But everyone calls us the E-rank failures, so nobody will want to join us," Lin whispered. "We don't need anyone else, because I already know exactly how we are going to win," Sai Chen replied. A third roommate, the silent and lanky Zhao, looked up from his book in the corner bunk. Zhao simply nodded, sensing a strange and dangerous aura emanating from the new Si Chen. With the team assembled, they departed the academy grounds under the cover of the early morning fog. Their destination was the Mythil Monster Exchange, the largest black market for hunter resources in the city. Thousands of hunters were shouting prices and waving glowing monster cores in the frantic air. Si Chen led his confused roommates toward a dusty stall tucked away in a dark alleyway. The merchant was a grease-covered man who was currently trying to sell rusted daggers to rookies. "I want all the cracked slime hearts you have in your inventory," Si Chen stated coldly. The merchant laughed out loud, pointing at the pile of worthless gray junk behind him. "Those are literal trash that even stray dogs won't eat, kid," the man sneered. Si Chen didn't blink as he pushed more gold across the table toward the merchant. Seeing the glint of gold, the merchant quickly scooped up the coins and pointed to the pile. "Si Chen, we just spent our entire month's allowance on garbage," Lin Zhao wailed in despair. Si Chen reached into the pile and picked up one of the dull, cracked slime hearts. He knew from his past life that these were not ordinary hearts, but dormant cores of the king slime. By applying a specific frequency of mana, the dormant energy inside would finally be awakened. Suddenly, the gray stone cracked open, revealing a brilliant, pulsating purple light within. Lin Zhao's jaw dropped so far it nearly hit the muddy ground of the alley. That is an S-rank essence pearl," the merchant screamed, his greed turning into instant regret. Si Chen pulled the pearl back and tucked it safely into his inner pocket with a smirk. "The deal is done, and a hunter's word at the exchange is law," Si Chen reminded him. They left the merchant fuming in the dirt and headed toward the high-end auction house. The interior of the auction house was filled with the scent of expensive mana incense and silk. Lin Zhao adjusted his messy hair, feeling completely out of place among the elite hunters. Si Chen walked straight to the appraisal counter and placed 3 awakened pearls on the velvet. The appraiser, an elderly woman with sharp eyes, dropped her magnifying glass in disbelief. "I haven't seen quality like this in over a decade," she whispered while trembling. Within an hour, the weakest roommates were no longer poor students, but millionaires in the making. However, Si Chen noticed several cloaked figures following them from the shadows of the pillars. The news of their sudden wealth had traveled fast to the ears of the Academy's most dangerous gang. Suddenly, the path back to the Academy was blocked by a wall of crackling black fire. A tall man with a scarred face stepped out of the flames, pointing a heavy axe at Si Chen's throat. "Hand over the credits and the rest of the pearls, or your friends die tonight," the giant roared. Si Chen slowly raised his hands, but his eyes were glowing with a terrifying, predatory blue light. "You should have taken the money while I was being nice," Si Chen whispered into the heat of the night. Si Chen stood at the threshold of the D-rank dungeon, his eyes reflecting the cold blue light of the portal. Behind him, Ma Long and the other roommates trembled, their breath hitching as the heavy mana pressure pushed against their chests. The team stepped through the threshold, immediately finding themselves in a sprawling forest of giant trees coated in thick, jagged ice. High above in the canopy, dozens of glowing red eyes flickered as the resident monsters sensed new prey. Suddenly, a flock of ghost monkey bats swooped down with terrifying speed, their shrieks piercing the silent air. Ma Long barely managed to roll out of the way as a set of razor-sharp claws whistled past his ear. Si Chen, however, did not move an inch until the monsters were inches away from his throat. Blue lightning suddenly exploded from his body, turning the falling snow into steam as he drew his blade in a blur. With every swing, a monkey bat was cleaved in two, their bodies dissipating into black smoke before they could hit the ground. Si Chen ordered his stunned roommates to maintain their formation while he cleared the path ahead. The roommates watched in awe as the boy they thought was weak systematically dismantled a D-rank horde. Inspired by his lead, the dorm king Xiang Zuo finally stepped forward, his hands glowing with a flicker of flame. The team combined their meager powers to trap a stray monster, using vines and frost to hold it still. With a desperate roar, Xiang Zuo unleashed a flame bullet that finally took the creature down. The trio collapsed into the snow, gasping for air after defeating just one monster while Si Chen stood over a dozen. As they reached the heart of the dungeon, the temperature plummeted, turning the air itself into a weapon. In the center of a frozen wasteland sat a massive ghost ape, casually gnawing on the ribcage of a fallen beast. The sheer size of the lair lord sent a wave of primal fear through the inexperienced students. The ape let out a thunderous roar, the sound waves cracking the very ice beneath their feet. Si Chen didn't wait for the beast to strike, launching himself into the air like a bolt of lightning. A brutal kick landed squarely on the ape's jaw, sending a spray of blood and broken teeth across the snow. Si Chen followed up with a series of slashes so fast the air itself seemed to scream. Within seconds, the giant creature lay in pieces and Si Chen stood over it, his breath coming in steady clouds. The roommates rushed toward a pile of giant mana stones they found hidden in a hollow tree near the kill. Si Chen shouted a warning, sensing the trap, but it was too late as their fingers touched the crystals. A massive explosion of frost energy erupted, instantly encasing everyone but Ma Long in solid blocks of ice. A high-pitched, rattling laugh echoed through the trees as a new figure emerged from the blizzard. The Bone King of Remains raised its skeletal staff, its empty eye sockets glowing with a hateful fire. Ma Long fell to his knees, his wristband flashing red with a warning of his dangerously high heart rate. The monster fired shards of ice that pierced Ma Long's shoulder, pinning him to the ground in agony. Remembering Si Chen's faith in him, Ma Long crawled through the snow, leaving a trail of red behind him. With his last bit of mana, he struck the ice block, cracking the surface just before another shard hit his leg. Inside the ice, Si Chen's eyes snapped open, glowing with a divine golden hunger. The prison shattered into 1,000 pieces as Si Chen unleashed his full power, catching Ma Long before he could collapse. Si Chen switched his class to the Abyssal Fiend, his skin turning a shade darker as black mana swirled around his feet. He moved so fast he disappeared from sight, leaving only a crater in the snow where he once stood. The Bone King barely had time to raise its arms before Si Chen's blade passed through its neck. A system notification chimed in his mind, announcing his rise to level 17 and the acquisition of a new soul. He walked back to his thawed roommates who looked at him as if he were a god walking among men. But as they exited the dungeon, the screen at the academy revealed a tie with the elite team, sparking a deadly glint in Gong Ting's eyes. Gong Ting stepped forward, his sword pointed at Si Chen's throat as he demanded a winner-takes-all duel. Si Chen simply smirked, knowing that this was exactly where his path to becoming the strongest truly began. Si Chen stood amidst the shattered remains of the Bone King, his blades dripping with necrotic essence. The system interface flickered before his eyes, confirming the successful devouring of the boss's soul. He turned his gaze toward the dungeon exit, where the remnants of the other teams were waiting. Outside the portal, Gong Ting was already boasting to the instructors about his supposed victory. Gong Ting held up a fake monster core, claiming he was the one who struck the final blow. The crowd whispered in awe, believing the lies of the prestigious Gong family heir. Suddenly, the portal surged with an intense pressure that silenced the entire courtyard. Si Chen stepped through the threshold, dragging the massive decapitated head of the Bone King behind him. The instructors gasped as the sheer weight of the S-rank trophy cracked the pavement. Si Chen looked at Gong Ting's small, fraudulent crystal and let out a short, dry laugh. He reached into his satchel and pulled out the genuine soul core, which radiated a terrifying heat. Gong Ting stumbled backward, his face turning pale as the fraud became painfully obvious. The headmaster stepped forward, his eyes fixed on the immense power emanating from Si Chen. He demanded an immediate explanation for the discrepancy in the kill reports. Gong Ting began to stammer, trying to bribe the officials right there in front of everyone. Si Chen played a recording from the system's memory, projecting Gong Ting's cowardice onto the academy's main screen. The entire student body erupted in boos and insults directed at the fallen heir. The headmaster immediately disqualified Gong Ting and stripped him of his family-bestowed honors. Si Chen was declared the sole winner of the graduation exam and the recipient of the grand prize. The $1 million prize was transferred to his account instantly, a sum that would change everything. With the funds secured, Si Chen knew he could finally afford the life-saving treatment for his sister. But his work was far from over. The demon Lord Wrath was still looming in the future. He walked toward the Mythil Monster Exchange to liquidate the rest of his dungeon loot. The merchant's eyes nearly popped out of his head when he saw the quality of the S-rank items. Si Chen traded the items for rare materials that would allow him to evolve his gluttony skill. He returned to a private training facility to undergo the final evolution of this stage. The process of devouring the Bone King's core felt like molten lava flowing through his veins. A massive explosion of mana erupted from his body, shaking the foundation of the building. New system notifications flooded his vision, announcing the arrival of the Triple S Hunter status. He checked his stats and saw that his strength had surpassed any hunter currently alive in this era. That evening, he visited the hospital where his sister was resting. He whispered to her that the nightmare was over and that they would never be poor again. Outside, the news of his unprecedented dungeon clear began to spread across the globe. Powerful organizations and secret guilds were already plotting how to recruit or destroy him. Si Chen stepped onto the rooftop of the hospital, looking out over the sprawling city. He knew exactly when the first gate of the Great Cataclysm would open, This time, he wouldn't be a sacrificial pawn in a losing war. He would be the predator that the monsters feared most. The shadows beneath his feet twisted and formed into the shape of the Rakshasa, bowing to its master. For the first time since his regression, Si-Chen felt a true sense of peace amidst the coming storm. The path of the gluttony hunter had only just begun, and the world was finally ready for its savior.